We see what China is doing in space, and it represents an existential threat to national security, our economy, and the safety and security of our country. And we ignore that threat at our peril.
I'm really jazzed about today's show. I'm so excited. And, we've been doing a lot of shows, very serious, sometimes downright just gut-wrenching, right? We've seen what's been happening all over the globe, whether it's in Israel or Ukraine or here in the United States, more importantly. But today, I'm going to take you away from all of that. I'm going to put you on a rocket ship, and I'm going to just blast you off into what is actually happening on Earth right now with human technology. It's one of my favorite subjects. I love discussing space and science and where we are at right now. And this show is just going to blow your mind. What if your next kidney, part of a heart, your liver was actually grown in space? What if that replacement was actually grown in space? What if a spaceship could be powered by a solar panel that could roll and unroll like a carpet? What if companies were planning on going to the moon, where they could experiment with pharmaceuticals and other types of life-changing, life-altering technologies that will extend your life and cure diseases that are incurable right now? This is not science fiction. This is happening right now in 2024, and I have one of the men who is making this a reality on today's show. How exciting is that? We are literally on the precipice of massive technological changes that will alter and shift humanity forever, and the way we see ourselves and the world around us, as well as the universe. I've got Michael Gold of Redwire, and we cover everything happening in the space industry on today's show, including, my friends, UAPs, otherwise known as UFOs. Today's show is jam-packed, and you don't want to miss a minute of it. First, Goldco, though. Are you concerned about the endless flood of illegal immigration at the southern border? How about the $1 trillion being added to the national debt about every 100 days? It's no wonder thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are learning how to protect and diversify their retirement savings with precious metals. That's why I've partnered with the top-rated company, Goldco. Listen to the current offer. Get a free 2024 wealth protection kit and learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of this show while supplies last. What do I say all the time? You need to diversify. Goldco has helped people like you and me place over $3.5 billion in gold and silver. Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, SARA, likesgold.com, or call 855-823-GOLD. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. Sara, SARA, likesgold.com, or 855-823-4653. That's Sara, SARA, likesgold.com, or call 855-823-GOLD. I'm so happy and excited to have Mike Gold here on the show. He is the Chief Growth Officer of Redwire. Prior to joining Redwire, Gold was NASA's Associate Administrator for Space Policy and Partnerships, Acting Associate Administrator for the Office of International and Interagency Relations, and a Senior Advisor to the Administrator for International and Legal Affairs. Can you have any more titles, Michael?
I'm glad we got through those titles, and there's still time in the show. So,
right. I mean, I'm so astonished at your career. And when Lou Elizondo introduced us, and he's such a phenomenal man. He has also had this most interesting and incredible career. But your career is, like I told you before we got on, is my envy. I envy that. I mean, you travel the world, you're working on projects that deal with space and space exploration. and you have this diversity of like knowledge when it comes to what I believe is this is the apex of humanity. We are forever will be changed based on what we do in the next decades when it comes to space and technology and innovation. I think it's going to change the way we see ourselves and the way we see the universe. So it's very exciting to me.
And I think it already is, Sarah. And that's the beauty of space as we look at the conflicts and difficulties that we're facing around the world. I believe that the solutions, the answer is in space and space exploration.
Talk about that a little bit. Talk about why you think that. And then we're going to go into some of the really most amazing things that you're working on.
Yeah, so I think nothing unites us like space exploration, space development. It represents the best of what humanity is and can be. What I'm often excited about in space is not just the better technology, but building a better future, a more peaceful one. If you look at what we've done with the Artemis Accords, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that
Absolutely.
later on, we've got nearly 40 countries from nearly every continent across the world, different cultures, different people, different languages, different ideas, all coming together for the shared vision of exploring the moon and Mars. We have Saudi Arabia, we've got United Emirates, we've got Israel, we've got Bahrain, Brazil, Singapore, all coming together for this shared vision of exploring the stars. And I just think space is unique as one of the only activities, one of the only missions that we can do that can bring people together like that.
What about those that I've talked to? And of course, we have Space Force in the United States, and there's always concern. As much as we cooperate and work together, there's also adversarial concerns in space. You know, people that want to control portions of space, the meaning of space, the classified nature of, you know, operating in space. Are those challenges that are difficult to come up against when you're working on projects like the Artemis, putting together the Artemis Accord, but even like the future Artemis space launch, or working with SpaceX or other really innovative companies that are trying to pursue humanity's, I guess, achievements in space instead of competitive nature in space?
So I see Space Force, the Artemis Accords, our national security needs, while trying to establish a peaceful future in space, is all complementary. I don't see these things in conflict at all. Space has never been more contested and congested, that we have more assets up in space than ever before. And as the war in Ukraine has shown, space is extraordinarily important to national security and everyday life. And we see what China is doing in space, and it represents an existential threat to national security, our economy, and the safety and security of our country. And we ignore that threat at our peril. So it's extremely important that we fund space development, space procurement, space capabilities. And that's why Space Force was so important. And it's funny, historically, if you look at the arguments that the Army made against creating the Air Force, they're almost exactly the same as the arguments that Air Force was then making against forming Space Force.
Do you think though, I thought it was like, I remember when that happened and it was just so crazy. And then they made fun of it with by the way, I love that show, Space Force. It's so funny. It's like, it's a crack up, but I take Space Force seriously. I mean, I take it as a very needed branch of our military, something that we have to have absolutely in this day and age of adversarial conflicts and satellites in space, and the possibility of the development of technologies that can actually target our satellites and shut down entire countries or sections of a country. I mean, that's the future of warfare, I think.
Yes.
And also spying and technologies like that. But when you think of how that developed, I've always felt like the Air Force was a little hurt, you know, and it was kind of like in the show Space Force, where the Air Force is kind of like, well, we're the guys who are flying. We need to be in charge of space. Like, we want to have the air and space. I think they would have been fine if you would have just given them Air Force, Space Force together.
Absolutely. And I enjoyed the show as well. I would say that
Yeah.
never has a show been so wrong yet so right at the same time.
Right, exactly. So true. Is it coming back? Is it coming back? Do you have any insight? I want more of
Unfortunately,
it.
no, there will not be a season 3 of Space Force. But on the plus side, we have the real Space Force. So well, I missed the show. I'm much more pleased that the real thing is continuing.
Yeah, me too.
And as we mentioned, we're so dependent on those space assets. And while Air Force obviously has wonderful people and is a terrific service, you needed a dedicated service to space in order to properly fund and support those space activities, which is why Space Force is so important. I'm a recovering attorney, so I'll tell you just from a procurement perspective, it's important to have that dedicated service, and that's why I'm so glad Space Force is there, and it'll rescue America, I'm sure, in the not too distant future.
I actually believe that as well. But let me ask you this, on a serious note, before we get to Artemis and then everything else cool that you're working on, like the organ growth, but experiments in space and all of that, it's just so fascinating to me. But are we doing enough for innovation? I mean, we've seen what Elon Musk is able to do with SpaceX. We're looking at all of these phenomenal Redwire, private industry taking a leap forward and saying, this is where innovation and technology is coming from. And are we doing enough in our country to develop these technologies when we see nations like China that have dedicated so much of their resources, and other nations as well, to advancing technologies and their military? I mean, I just hope we're not lagging behind.
Yeah, I would say, Sarah, we're doing a lot, and there is more that must be done. We're looking at a future, ultimately, where China outspends us in space. Our answer must be to out-entrepreneur China in space. If you look at the success of SpaceX, which is something that, by the way, even the Chinese have admitted that they can't match. If you look at what Blue Origin is doing and Jeff Bezos, none of that would be happening if it wasn't for public-private partnerships. The government and the private sector coming together for the betterment of both. And we need to do more of that in space. We need to stay the course. We need to grow it. And you are seeing it happen. So the Department of Defense, the Space Development Agency, they have been very focused on not only public-private partnerships, but ensuring that we grow the industrial base, focusing on small, medium-sized companies, new technologies to move forward. So that's all been good. NASA is using private sector companies to put people on the moon in this upcoming Artemis missions, and the private sector plays a gigantic role in Artemis. Redwire is building the rollout solar arrays for the lunar gateway that will orbit the moon. We're building the International Birthing.
Stop right there. Stop right there. The solar technology. Okay, I'm going to go way back. The Japanese American physicist Michio Kaku.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember him discussing way back when. This may be 20 years ago. That the future of space exploration would rely on solar energy and technology. That would be the impetus to moving man into the far reaches and the vast reaches of space. Like, this would be our way of, I guess, Star Trekking it, right? We would find a way to utilize that. Is that what we're looking at? Is that what Redwire is doing?
Redwire follows absolutely the path that Michio Kaku lays out. And I wish I had a hat on so I could tip it to the Michio Kaku reference.
Yeah, I'm so mind blown because I never forgot that. That. When he was discussing that, I thought that's really incredible, because we've got suns and solars and these star systems throughout our universe, and we can utilize that for energy resources.
Yes, it's a constant source of energy, which is so important for us in space. And what you'll love about our solar arrays in particular, and these are powering the International Space Station as we speak, is that they're compacted. Think about a carpet. And then when it reaches space, it rolls out. So you get a lot more volume in space, but when it's going up in the rocket fairing, it takes up a relatively small amount of space. So an extremely innovative, an extremely creative way to get solar energy. And we're thrilled that, again, it's powering the International Space Station. It was used for the DART mission, these rollout solar arrays, the double asteroid redirect test, where we hit an asteroid to show that if Earth was threatened, that we could have a kinetic impact on an asteroid to move it. We're building the largest solar arrays.
How serious is that? Because I think about that as well. I mean, I don't stay up nights thinking about it, but sometimes I do. Like, what if? I mean, we're just here on Earth. We only monitor a small bit of space. We have no idea if there's a giant asteroid heading our way. I mean, we're lucky.
I may owe you some sleep, Sarah, because you should be staying up worrying about that at least a little.
I should be, right? I should be worried about it.
You talk about climate change. Let me tell you, there's a lot of climate change when you get hit by an asteroid. And unfortunately, if you look historically, we're due. And right now, we're covering just a very small percentage of the night sky. What the DART mission was intended to do, and Redwire did both the solar arrays, get innovative rollout solar arrays, and the guidance system for DART, was to show that if an asteroid was coming towards us, we could hit it with a spacecraft and move it enough so that it would avoid the Earth. The key to that, however, is identifying that the asteroid is coming towards us early enough that we can mount a mission. And candidly, we are not tracking enough of the night sky to be able to know we could be hit by one right now and we wouldn't know. So we really need to, if you look at where we need to.
We would just sizzle like that. We would just, if it hit, there would be it just over. Innovation done.
It could happen during this interview. There could be a planet killer out there that would end us as a civilization. So as we like to say, asteroids are the good Lord's way of checking on how's your space program going. But if the dinosaurs had had one, they'd still be here today. And we've got a very unique opportunity. Speaking of asteroids, there's a large one called Apophis that is going to come so close to Earth, it will be below geosynchronous satellites. So we've been talking to our friends at Blue Origin about using a new innovative system called Blue Ring to bring spacecraft to Apophis and be able to study it. It will be an unprecedented opportunity to learn more about asteroids, to help with science, and to learn how to defend Earth against those asteroids when they come. And this is an area, when I was at NASA, we actually executed an MOU between Space Force and NASA to ensure that the two organizations were doing everything that we could to ensure we could track more asteroids, understand where they are, where they're coming from. But there's a lot more investment and innovation we need to do to make sure that our planet is safe.
When is that asteroid expected to come into, I guess, into our area of the solar system? When is it expected to reach
It will
Earth?
come closest to Earth in 2029. But again, I am getting back from Dubai, a little jet lag, so I would check on that date. But I believe.
Yeah, no, it's perfectly fine. We're going to guesstimate around there. We hopefully not sooner. Hopefully we have time to plan and actually get there. Let me ask you a really ridiculous science fiction question, and then we're going to go to Artemis, and I promise you we're going to get there. So could we, like in the movie Armageddon, which by the way I do love, I still think it's one of my favorites. Because it was so crazy, the drillers up on the, do you think we'd ever be able to land any kind of ship on an asteroid and try to retrieve objects, or could we do a drone?
Absolutely.
Not have to.
It's been done. It's been done by our friends at JAXA, our friends at ESA, even our friends at United Arab Emirates are working on a mission to do just that now, to go to an asteroid and retrieve a sample. So that is something that space agencies.
So we can mine asteroids with robots.
We could potentially mine asteroids with robots, or even if Bruce Willis, if he's willing, send him.
He was so amazing in that movie. I love that.
It was my wedding song.
Him.
Was I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. I love that film so much.
I knew I liked you, Mike. I knew it. So let's move to Artemis, because I know you're so excited. We talked about a little bit about the Artemis Accords. I have them right here for those of you who are watching. I'm sure they're much. Turner. I'm sure. Yeah, it's a page turner. It will keep you like riveted. And it actually does for me. It's very exciting to me. But also the fact that the Artemis Accords are part of the Artemis project. And you're planning this Artemis project is to go to the moon, right? And have this diverse group of incredible astronauts and explorers and scientists to see how they work together. And why is the moon so important? I know people will say, like, why are we going to the moon? We can't even solve problems here on this planet. I'm like, let's go to the moon. I'm all
I
about
get
it.
so
But
frustrated with that narrative, by the way.
I
When I
know.
was at NASA, I was doing an interview with a BBC reporter who was asking me, how can you justify spending billions of dollars in space when we have existential threats here on Earth, like climate change? And I told her, you wouldn't even know about climate change if it wasn't for the science, the satellites, the space program. And by the way, we wouldn't be having this
Bingo.
call if it wasn't for telecommunication satellites that were enabling it. I believe we can go to space to improve life on Earth, to solve these problems, that we go to the moon not just to explore, but to make discoveries, create technologies that will make life better for all of us here. And relative to the moon in particular, by the way, people, and I've heard it, been there, done that. Why would we go back? Yeah, a decade ago, Sarah, we thought the moon was bone dry, just barren. Now we've discovered vast quantities of water ice on the moon that could be used to create air, to create fuel, and that could support a whole new generation of exploration science on the moon and have the moon serve as a launching pad for Mars.
Right. I was going to say it could be a platform for Mars. And with that discovery of water, it's so incredible. The potential for what we could utilize the moon for is like extraordinary. I mean, it could be a science hub. People could be going back and forth in between. You know, that's where you work during the week and you fly back home on the weekends. I don't know,
And
but it's
I
exciting.
guarantee you, Sarah, that there are many, many more surprises that the moon has in store for us that we can't even imagine what we're going to encounter.
Wow.
Think about if you
Well,
sent just 12 probes or 24 missions to Earth. Would you discover everything, even a small portion about our planet? You have no idea. So I
nothing.
believe that the best is yet to come relative to discoveries, the science that we'll make about the moon, that again will improve life here on Earth.
One of those is actually this amazing new technology that I think is incredible. And it's actually, there's a doctor, a scientist in Dubai that is working on these issues. It deals with 3D printing human tissue in space. Can you talk a little bit about that and why growing organs in space, that potential is so life changing for humanity because we don't have to wait for someone to die, right?
Yes, it could potentially revolutionize organ donation, which, if you think about it today, is just medieval and terrifying that you have to wait for someone to
Yes.
die in space.
Even when you're filling out your driver's license and you're filling out that part, there's a little part of you that just sinks. You're like, yeah, I'm going to be an organ donor. God, please don't let me die.
which is
Don't let my car
which is
crash.
wonderful, but we're going to hopefully make that obsolete someday. And it's a great example of how space,
How realistic is that?
we're doing it now. So right now, Redwire, and we've been at this for decades. So this is a 30-year overnight success. We successfully printed the first human meniscus in space. And in space, it's a microgravity environment, so very little gravity. And that allows you to print, and I'll be technical here, without everything squishing. In gravity, you can't form these organs or these pieces of muscle effectively because gravity collapses them. Whereas in space, it almost simulates the human body, where it's a suspension matrices, and you can create the first human meniscus, which we printed. And now, by the way, we printed cardiovascular tissue in space for the first time, brought it back, it was still alive. And this can lead to heart patches. So people with heart disease, we can create the heart patches. The meniscus, by the way, the customer for that was the Uniformed Services University, because the number one injury to our men and women in uniform are meniscus injuries.
Right.
So here you see benefits for medicine, benefits for national security. We also flew a mission called Pillbox, where in space you can create these perfect seed crystals, and seed crystals are what we make drugs out of. So you can create new versions of drugs with enhanced efficacy, better longevity. We flew insulin, heart disease drugs, cancer drugs. Again, a great example of how we can go to space, not only for scientific discovery and exploration, but to find ways to heal the sick, to feed the hungry, and solve our problems here on Earth.
Folks, you know I love my pillow. I love, love, love my pillow. I've got my pillow dog beds, Macy Daisy Buttercup. She's sleeping on one underneath my desk. I love my pillow slippers. They're soft, they're comfortable. You can wear them outside. They've got the rubber bottoms. I've got the my pillow bed sheets. I've got my pillow everything. In fact, my husband just asked me to order some more my pillows, which is what I did. And I ordered some extra bed sheets for our guest bedroom. You cannot go wrong with Mike Lindell. Use promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R at mypillow.com to get the sale price and free shipping on your order of over $75. Here are some of the products available for only $25. You get 2-pack My Pillows. What I just got, My Pillow sandals, luxurious 6-pack towel sets, which I'm going to get for my daughter Sophia when she moves into her new home. The brand new 4-pack dish towels, small dog beds, beach towels, other savings with promo code CARTER. I want you to go to mypillow.com or call 800-685-7221 today to get in on the $25 extravaganza today. Be sure to use code Carter to get the sale price and free shipping on your order of over $75. Call 800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Again, mypillow.com, promo code Carter. Let me ask you this. Do you work in partnership with other private corporations? I mean, it's like Redwire is doing all of this incredible innovation in space. And I'm sure you have so many more ideas and dossiers out there with possibilities. How does that work? I mean, are you a private company? Can I invest in you?
You absolutely can invest in us. We're on the New York Stock Exchange. I hope everyone does. RDW.
Yeah, there you go. Because I'm like so excited about all the work you're doing. I mean, it's like just phenomenal to me. It really is like incredible where amazing. Humanity is heading.
It is amazing. And again, when you look at the news, there can be a lot of bad stuff. This gives me hope for the future. Right. This drives me forward. And in terms of cooperation, space is a team sport. So we wouldn't be able to get to the International Space Station if it wasn't for SpaceX and their Dragon capsule.
That's right.
We wouldn't be able to work in the ISS if it wasn't for NASA, the International Space Station. Uniformed Services University sponsored this work. We work with an entity called CASIS, the ISS National Lab, which supports the effort. Boeing provides the power via our rollout solar arrays I described. Those were on contract from Boeing that supports the International Space Station. Lockheed Martin built the Orion capsule that carried our cameras, which took amazing images of the moon. So it's a team effort both here in the US and across the world. And that's one of the things I love so much about space, how it brings us all together as a human species.
So now my last section of questions for you, but I'm going to bring you back so many more times. You're going to just be like, why is Sara calling me again? Because I just love talking to you. But my last set of questions, part of the UAP program, you talked about what brings us together. I believe nothing will bring us together more than the realization that we are not the only game in town, that we are not the only intelligent species in the entire universe. I think once we start to really fathom that or realize that, that's when everybody's going to kind of put their problems aside like a family and kind of unify like in the movies, Independence Day. Hopefully they won't be bad guys, but you know, you never know. And we're unify us. Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't, Sara, because I am in violent agreement with you. I think it was Ronald Reagan who said, imagine if there were an other, force out there, how quickly we would drop all of our petty biases and petty bigotries, and how it would unite humanity as a whole, because we're not all that different relative to what else might be out there. And that's why I think it's so important that we look at the issue scientifically in a data-driven method to get answers.
You do for NASA, right? You do that for NASA. You have or outside of NASA, it's an independent study.
So it was my privilege and honor to be a part of an independent study team that was established by NASA to look at the issue and make recommendations as to how NASA could tackle the topic of UAPs and be a part of it. And our recommendations were simply keep going after the data, that we need more information, better information, uniform information, that the unfortunate aspect of UAP phenomena is that we're using systems to track UAP that weren't developed for the purpose, that we're using cameras on fighter jets, we're using someone's cell phone where you capture something, et cetera. We would never
study, and it's a dot.
Exactly. You would never study astronomical phenomena like that.
Right.
So we need dedicated resources to look at this very curious and very important phenomena, because whatever is occurring, I think the testimony that we've heard from pilots that we've got these UAPs, identified anomalous phenomena, for those of you who don't know what UAP is, that's occurring over our national security installations, during
our nuclear sites,
especially our nuclear sites. So whether they're
moving 700 to 900 Gs in some cases, yes, is what they're clocking it at. And just, because I think this is important. I think we have to take this seriously. Exactly. They're moving in intelligent patterns. Exactly. They aren't just like some kind of weird. Now, some of them might just be weather phenomena, things that people see might confuse them. But what our military officers are seeing is whatever it is moving with intelligence, meaning it's tracking a pilot, it's moving around a base in a particular way, it's projecting where a plane may be and then showing up right at the same time. That to me, could it be drones? Could we be looking at, we just don't know, right?
And that's the problem. We don't know. And I think that's an unacceptable answer when we've got these UAPs over national security drills, national security facilities. We need to understand and get to the bottom of this issue. I think NASA has a very important role to play in that, to
Absolutely.
use its resources, to use its archives and its ability to collect information from civilian pilots to understand what's occurring here. Because if these are systems that are adversarial from China or from Russia, we need to understand that. If there's something else, we need to understand that. And I'm sure a vast majority of these sightings are probably weather-related or balloons or something common. But there's certainly a percentage that we've seen, particularly from our military pilots, that seem to defy explanation. So we need to understand the phenomena. The AARO group, the All Domain Awareness Group, is doing a great job of taking a look at this. I was, again, pleased to be a part of the NASA independent study team making recommendations on that. I just hope that the recommendations are followed through now, because particularly with pilots, civilian pilots, there's such a stigma that goes along with reporting these phenomena.
Well, and I think that and I'm going to stick on this just for one more second, because I know this is going to interest all of my listeners, and it certainly interests me. The government went back and forth. We had the New York Times story broke, huge, where our government admits we don't have all the answers. Yeah, this is true. We have these whistleblowers that are coming out now and feeling confident that they can speak about this subject without being relegated to the insane asylum, or like, you're not going to be flying anymore because we're just going to call you crazy. And that was, to me, horrific, where people who actually had information were terrified of sharing it because they felt their careers were going to be over.
Yes.
But now we jumped, I felt 20 leaps forward only to jump, my friend. Wait, let me find the headline right here. 29 leaps backwards, or 30, with the Pentagon now saying, oh, you know what? Most of that's just not even real. And we're not going to talk about it anymore. So there's a story that just came out in The Hill. Mark Von, and I can never pronounce his name correctly, Rennenkamp, I think that's it. And he wrote The Pentagon is lying about UFOs in The Hill, because because it's so back and forth, and then people don't trust the government.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Sarah, that stigma that can go along with the UAPs, it's so dangerous and pernicious because then no one reports. Right. And the ultimate way to unlock this mystery is through data. It's through information. And if we can't push back on that stigma, we're not going to get that data. And this is where I think NASA could be so helpful, because there's few agencies or entities on Earth that have the credibility that NASA does. When you see that NASA meatball, when you see the NASA name, it stands for science. It stands for credibility. It stands for information. And to the extent we have NASA involved in this issue, just trying to get to the truth and being completely objective, I think it can be extraordinarily helpful, if nothing else, in pushing back against that stigma so that pilots and others feel free to come forward with information and what their experiences are to NASA, to DoD, and that's going to be critical to finding answers.
Are you excited about the future of NASA and the private industry working together? And is that a future that you see evolving, where NASA can exist in cohesion with private industry for the future of space exploration?
I have never been more excited. There has never been a greater time to be in space, even including Apollo. If you think of all the innovation, all of the different companies, all of the opportunities and ideas that we've got, it's absolutely unprecedented. And I always tell everyone, beware of false dichotomies. The question isn't government or the private sector, it's government and the private sector working together. That's when we're at our best. That's our strength. That unlocks American entrepreneurialism, and it's why we'll win. I always say, particularly relative to China, that what's inherently American is why we'll be victorious. It's our diversity, it's our economy, it's our entrepreneurialism. If we lean into that, we will be able to be the future in space, and that's a future worth living for.
Wow. Thank you so much, Michael, for being on the show today. Your insights so incredible. I would love to bring you back on. I would love to discuss in more detail the threat from China. I would love to discuss in more detail what you're doing at NASA as far as like a moon and space exploration with Redwire. Is there any, maybe any kind of advice or prediction, maybe that would be better, a prediction of where you see mankind, 20, 30, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, based on what you're studying, what you're looking at?
We're going to be on the moon, and we're going to be on Mars in 30 years, and life on Earth will be transformed by the technologies and the lessons that we learn in doing so. What we're doing at Redwire with developing new drugs, printing cardiovascular tissue, those are just examples now that we've got of how we're going to solve the problems on Earth by going to space. So I see a better future for humanity, not only in the stars, but right here on Earth. And I can't wait to see it.
I'm so excited too. And it's not all doom and gloom out there, folks. I know it seems like it. I know we report on that a lot, but we are an amazing species, and we're innovative and we're creative, and we're going to do things that are extraordinary. And I agree with you, Michael. I think one day if I could be here 100 years from now, maybe they'll download me into a computer. I don't know if they want that, but I could be fun.
I hope they don't use Microsoft Outlook, because I've been having problems with that today.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, no Microsoft Outlook.
And Sarah, if I could end with a plea to your listeners, and I'm so grateful for you having me on. You don't have to be an astronaut to participate in this commercial space revolution. If you're a cook, if you do advertising, if you do bookkeeping, there is a place for you in the space industry. So I would ask everyone to pursue your dream. Don't give up on it just because you're not a scientist. And we need more scientists and engineers, to be clear. But everyone should live the dream, look for ways to get involved. There is a place for you in the space industry and a better future for all of you personally. And we need as much help as we can get. So thank you for putting me on. Thank you for the time. And I'm excited to come back.
Please make sure you are subscribed to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. It really helps bring all of these fantastic guests on the show and really gives us a boost in our algorithm. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like and a follow as well. Thank you so much. Again, follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our nation. God bless our future adventures in space. And God bless the great state of Texas.